It's the quiet moments that often hold the loudest truths. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, overlooking an expanse of unknowns. The wind tugs at you, both a physical force and a metaphor for the pull of your deepest desires. You can feel the weight of possibility in the air, the exhilaration of what could be. But then, like a shadow creeping over your thoughts, doubt appears, soft, subtle, insidious. What if you fail, it whispers. What if you're not enough? The pull to step back grows stronger, until the edge no longer feels like an invitation to soar, but a precipice of failure, an overwhelming abyss. You freeze. The world continues to move, yet in this moment, you remain stagnant, torn between your potential and your fear. This is the paradox of self-doubt. It's not that we are without greatness, but that we are terrified of stepping into it. There is a voice in our head, a subtle but persistent force, that convinces us we are not capable, not worthy of the heights we dream of. And yet, it's precisely this fear, this uncertainty, that reveals the untapped potential lying dormant within us. The self-doubt we experience isn't the absence of greatness. It is the signal that we are standing on the edge of transformation. It is the fear of becoming who we truly are. The conflict between who we think we are and who we could be creates a tension that defines so much of our lives. On the surface, the fear of failure or inadequacy appears to be a rational response, a defense mechanism designed to protect us from potential harm. After all, if we never step forward, we can't fall, right? But in this seeming safety, we are also suffocated by unrealized potential. We are paralyzed by the thought that we may not live up to the expectations we place on ourselves, or, perhaps more terrifyingly, that we don't even know what those expectations are. The very essence of self-doubt is the overwhelming sense of not knowing what we are truly capable of. Yet, as Carl Jung once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. It is not the external world that binds us in chains, but our own inability to embrace the parts of ourselves we deem unworthy or imperfect. This is the starting point of self-doubt, a rejection of the self. We cannot move forward if we are unwilling to fully accept who we are in the present. The fear of embracing ourselves, flaws and all, keeps us frozen in place, afraid that we might not meet some unknown standard of excellence. But what if, instead of hiding from our flaws, we saw them as the very foundation of our growth? In this tension, we encounter a profound truth. Self-doubt is not a sign of weakness, but an invitation to courage. It is the signal that we are about to break through to something greater. It is a reminder that growth requires discomfort, that becoming who we are meant to be often demands us to step into the unknown, to confront not only the world around us, but also the fear inside us. Self-doubt doesn't exist because we are incapable. It exists because we are on the verge of becoming something more than we ever imagined. But this realization doesn't come easily. The narrative of self-doubt is deeply ingrained in us, shaped by a society that often values external validation over internal growth. From a young age, we are conditioned to seek approval, to measure our worth by the opinions of others. We are taught to fear failure because it reflects poorly on us as individuals. And so, we shrink back from the possibility of failure, from the possibility of greatness, because it means risking exposure, vulnerability, and perhaps rejection. The external world tells us that if we do not succeed, we are not enough. But is this the truth, or is it merely an illusion? The pressure to meet external expectations feeds into the cycle of self-doubt. We see others succeeding, achieving, and we compare ourselves to them. But what if the comparison itself is flawed? What if, in constantly measuring ourselves against others, we are failing to see the unique path that lies before us? We aren't meant to be replicas of those who came before us. Our potential isn't measured by how closely we align with the success of others, but by how deeply we are willing to connect with our own sense of purpose. This is where the battle of self-doubt becomes truly insidious. It's not just an internal conflict. It is a reflection of the tension between the external world's expectations and our own internal desires. The more we look outside ourselves for validation, the more we reinforce the illusion that our worth is determined by external standards. In this cycle, we forget the most important truth of all. We are enough, not because of what we accomplish or how others see us, but because of who we are inherently. Now, imagine for a moment that you allow yourself to fully embrace this paradox. What if the fear you feel is not a sign of your inadequacy, but a sign of your potential? What if self-doubt is simply the reflection of the greatness that lies on the other side of your fear? The moment you confront that fear, not by fighting it, but by accepting it as part of who you are, you begin to transform. You realize that self-doubt doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. It is the very thing that pushes you to step beyond your comfort zone, to leap into the unknown, and to discover what you are truly capable of. And in that moment, you are no longer held back by doubt, but propelled forward by the courage to embrace it. As you stand at the edge, the choice becomes clear. Step back into the safety of the familiar, or step forward into the possibility of becoming who you were always meant to be. The cliff is not a boundary. It is an invitation. An invitation to leap into the unknown, to face the doubt head-on, and to discover that the greatness you seek was always inside you. It was only waiting for you to believe in it. Self-doubt is the bridge between who we are and who we could become. It is the moment before transformation. The real question is, will we have the courage to cross it? Self-doubt, when we look at it from a deeper perspective, is not the simple barrier it may first appear to be. It is not just an emotional response or a fleeting feeling. It is a profound psychological and philosophical paradox that speaks to the very core of our human nature. To truly understand self-doubt, we must first confront the underlying forces that shape it, forces that have been examined by some of the most influential thinkers in history, from Carl Jung to Nietzsche to Viktor Frankl. These philosophers and psychologists, through their work, have shed light on the nature of human suffering, growth, and the endless dance between fear and potential. At its essence, self-doubt is a reflection of a deep internal conflict, the tension between who we believe ourselves to be and who we are capable of becoming. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow is essential here. According to Jung, the shadow is that part of ourselves that we suppress, deny, or fail to recognize. It is the darker, more unconscious aspects of our psyche that we often avoid facing because they make us uncomfortable. But Jung also believed that the shadow contains not just our fears and weaknesses, but also our greatest potential. The more we reject these parts of ourselves, the more we allow self-doubt to fester. The shadow holds the keys to our growth, but only if we are brave enough to confront it. In the case of self-doubt, this shadow is often embodied by our fears of inadequacy and failure. We are afraid to step into the fullness of who we are because we believe we will be rejected, criticized, or deemed unworthy. But in reality, it is this very rejection of ourselves that fuels the doubt. The more we resist the idea of our own greatness, the more we create a narrative of inadequacy that perpetuates our fear. We are afraid of what we might find if we look too closely at ourselves. But in avoiding the shadow, we only reinforce the illusion that we are not capable, when in truth, we are only hiding from the most powerful version of ourselves. To understand this further, we turn to Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of the will to power. Nietzsche argued that all human beings are driven by a fundamental desire to assert themselves, to overcome limitations, and to grow beyond what they currently are. This drive, he believed, is the essence of human flourishing. However, self-doubt acts as a barrier to this will to power, preventing us from stepping into our greatness. When we doubt ourselves, we limit our capacity to strive for excellence. The paradox, though, is that the very act of overcoming self-doubt by confronting and challenging it is an expression of the will to power itself. Nietzsche believed that in order to achieve greatness, we must be willing to face suffering and discomfort, for it is through these challenges that we grow stronger. But this drive for growth and self-actualization is not merely a personal ambition. It is existential in nature. Viktor Frankl, the renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, taught us that the search for meaning is at the heart of human existence. Frankl's work, particularly his development of logotherapy, suggests that our greatest motivation is not the pursuit of pleasure or success, but the pursuit of meaning. This search for meaning, however, is often clouded by self-doubt. When we doubt ourselves, we doubt our purpose. We question whether our existence has value or whether our efforts are worthwhile. But Frankl's teachings provide us with a profound insight. Meaning is not something that is given to us from the outside. It is something we must create from within, even in the face of suffering and uncertainty. This is where the external world plays a significant role in the development of self-doubt. Society and culture often reinforce the idea that we must prove our worth, that we must seek external validation in order to be seen as successful or capable. The constant bombardment of social media, the pressure of academic and career achievements, and the relentless pursuit of perfection create an environment where self-doubt can thrive. We begin to measure our worth by the standards set by others, forgetting that true excellence is not about meeting these external expectations, but about aligning with our own internal sense of purpose and meaning. The danger, then, is that self-doubt becomes not only an internal struggle, but a reflection of society's expectations. When we measure our success by external metrics, we are more likely to experience doubt. Our sense of self-worth becomes tied to achievements, accolades, and the approval of others, which makes it all the more difficult to trust in our own abilities. The more we seek external validation, the more we lose sight of our true self. This creates a feedback loop where self-doubt reinforces itself, because we are always looking outside of ourselves for confirmation of our worth, rather than trusting our own intrinsic value. Yet, within this very struggle, there is a critical insight. The tension between internal and external worlds is the crucible in which personal transformation occurs. The path to overcoming self-doubt is not about silencing the external voices or rejecting societal norms. It is about finding the courage to listen to our inner voice, the one that connects us to our deeper purpose. This is what Frankl meant when he said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." The process of confronting self-doubt is an invitation to redefine our relationship with ourselves and the world around us. It calls us to ask, what truly matters? What is the meaning of our efforts, our journey, our pursuit of excellence? As we explore these philosophical ideas, it becomes clear that self-doubt is not a roadblock to our potential. It is a part of the process. It is a natural reaction to the uncertainty of life, to the discomfort of growth. But it is also an essential element of the human experience. To be human is to struggle, to question, and to doubt. And yet, it is through this struggle that we are able to transcend the limitations of our current selves and step into the fullness of our potential. The journey toward excellence is not one of perfection, but of continual growth. It is a journey that requires us to face our fears, to confront our self-doubt, and to embrace the challenges that come with the pursuit of meaning and purpose. In the end, the truth behind self-doubt is this. It is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be understood and integrated. It is a signal that we are on the verge of growth, that we are about to step into something greater than we have ever known. To overcome self-doubt is not to eliminate it, but to transform it into a source of strength and motivation. It is the recognition that the fear we feel is not a sign of our inadequacy, but a sign of our potential. And in that recognition, we find the courage to move forward, to leap into the unknown, and to embrace the greatness that is waiting for us on the other side. There comes a moment in every journey, a pivotal point where all the internal conflict, all the doubt, all the questioning, gives way to something much more powerful, clarity. It is the moment when we realize that the very thing we've been afraid of, the self-doubt that has kept us in chains, is not an enemy to be conquered, but a companion guiding us toward our true potential. The realization that self-doubt is not a wall, but a door, is the transformative breakthrough that allows us to step into the fullness of who we are meant to be. For so long, we've been conditioned to think that overcoming self-doubt means pushing it aside, suppressing it, or pretending it doesn't exist. We've been taught to ignore our fears, to act as though we are invincible, and to bury any doubts beneath the surface in the name of confidence. But this approach, this denial of our vulnerability, is not the path to greatness. The true path to transformation lies not in running away from self-doubt, but in embracing it, in making peace with it, and using it as a springboard to propel us forward. In this moment of clarity, we understand that self-doubt is not a reflection of our incapacity. It is a reflection of our potential. It is the sign that we are standing at the threshold of something greater. When we doubt ourselves, it is because we are about to challenge ourselves. We are about to leave behind the safety of what we know and step into the unknown, into the realm of possibility where growth happens. This is the paradox of greatness. Greatness does not come without fear, without doubt, or without struggle. In fact, these very elements are what make greatness possible. They are the catalysts that force us to push beyond our limits, to reach for something higher, something that feels just out of reach. At this point, we must also understand that embracing self-doubt does not mean we allow it to dictate our actions or control our lives. It means we acknowledge it, we honor its presence, but we do not let it define us. There is a deep and profound power in accepting the reality of our fear without letting it paralyze us. When we stop resisting, we stop fearing, and we can finally move. Moving in spite of doubt is an act of courage, a courage not rooted in certainty, but in the willingness to act regardless of the uncertainty that surrounds us. This is where the psychological transformation begins. When we stop seeing self-doubt as a threat and instead recognize it as a signal of growth, we shift our mindset. The shift is subtle, yet profound. It's a change from being a passive observer of our fear to becoming an active participant in our own evolution. We stop waiting for the right moment, the perfect set of conditions, or the absence of fear. We begin to act in spite of it, and in doing so, we step into a new version of ourselves. This is the heart of personal transformation, the ability to move from self-doubt to self-empowerment. To fully embrace this transformation, we must also learn to detach from the need for external validation. For so long, we have lived with the belief that our worth is determined by what others think of us, by how well we perform, and by the success we achieve. But the truth is, external validation is fleeting. It is not reliable, and it certainly does not define our greatness. The more we rely on others to define our value, the more we feed our self-doubt. True self-empowerment comes from within. It is the recognition that we are worthy not because of what we achieve, but because of who we are, imperfect, vulnerable, and constantly evolving. This is where Nietzsche's philosophy of the will to power becomes truly relevant. Nietzsche believed that the human will, when directed inward, has the power to shape our own reality. It is not about seeking power over others, but about asserting power over our own lives, our own fears, and our own limitations. The will to power is the strength to stand in the face of doubt, to move forward in the face of fear, and to claim our own path, no matter how uncertain or challenging it may be. It is the courage to leap, knowing that we may fall, but trusting that even in the fall, we will rise again, stronger and wiser. This internal transformation is mirrored in the external world. When we begin to embrace our own power, when we stop waiting for the external world to validate us, something remarkable happens. The world begins to shift around us. We start attracting the opportunities, people, and circumstances that align with our newfound sense of self. The external world, in many ways, is a reflection of our internal state. When we embrace our true potential, we become a magnet for growth and possibility. The very doubt that once held us back now becomes the force that propels us forward. But this journey is not linear. Transformation is not a one-time event, but a continual process of growth, resistance, and breakthrough. There will be moments when the doubt creeps back in, when the fear feels overwhelming. But these moments are no longer signs of failure. They are reminders that we are on the right path. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory over self-doubt. Every moment of fear faced and overcome is a testament to our strength and resilience. And so, we continue the journey, knowing that the doubt will always be a part of the process. It will not disappear, but it will no longer control us. We begin to see it for what it truly is. Not an obstacle, but a teacher. It is the voice that reminds us to grow, to stretch beyond our comfort zones, to strive for more. Self-doubt becomes the fuel for our fire, the spark that ignites our desire for greatness. As we embrace this transformation, we realize that the only true way to overcome self-doubt is to step into the very thing we fear the most, ourselves. The doubt is not about our abilities or our worth. It is about our fear of confronting who we truly are. When we face this fear, when we embrace the fullness of who we are, strengths and weaknesses, light and shadow, self-doubt no longer holds any power over us. We become whole. We become complete. We become the person we were always meant to be. And so, the journey continues. It is a journey of continual growth, continual transformation. With each step we take, the doubt becomes less a barrier and more a doorway. And through that doorway, we find the greatness we have always possessed, waiting to be unlocked. It was never about overcoming self-doubt, but about understanding it, embracing it, and using it as the catalyst to step into our true potential. The real question is not whether we will experience doubt, but whether we will have the courage to move forward in spite of it. And in that courage, we discover the greatness that lies within us. All that as we near the end of this exploration, we return to the place where our journey began, standing at the edge, uncertain, filled with fear, and yet drawn toward something greater. The doubt still lingers, like a shadow that never fully disappears, but we now see it for what it truly is, not an obstacle, but a companion on the road to growth. It is no longer something to be defeated or hidden from, but something to be acknowledged, understood, and even embraced. The courage to step forward in the face of that doubt, to leap into the unknown, is where true greatness resides. This journey is not a destination. It is a process, a continuous evolution. The edge you stand on is not the final point, but the beginning of a lifelong path of discovery. Each time we confront self-doubt, we are presented with an opportunity to grow, to expand, and to transcend the limitations we once thought were insurmountable. There is no perfect moment to become the person you are meant to be. There is no single leap that will guarantee success or fulfillment. Greatness is not a one-time achievement. It is a constant act of embracing our vulnerability, confronting our fears, and moving forward anyway. It is a lifelong practice, not a singular event. In the end, self-doubt is not the enemy of greatness. It is the gateway. The more we learn to live with it, to sit with it, and to act despite it, the more we find that our greatness was never truly out of reach. It has always been within us, waiting for us to recognize it. We have always had the power, the potential, and the strength to create the life we desire. What has been missing often is the willingness to accept ourselves fully, the ability to stand in the face of fear and say, I am enough even in my imperfection. As you stand at the edge once more, ask yourself, what would happen if you no longer let self-doubt define your journey?